Laser Live. Getting some things set up here for what will be a very insightful discussion on value-driven partnerships and relationships within business, within life. And I feel this topic is very important. So Shadidi Laser Live is dedicated towards business, health, and lifestyle discussion designed to ignite the best version of yourself. Let's see, closing out all these windows. First of all, how are you guys doing? For those of you who are checking in on the broadcast, what city are you checking in from? I'm going to get this show on the road very shortly. Been anywhere in the world, but you are tuning in with me. Only the Kid, Ryan, Pratchett Bay, Baltimore City, USA. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, getting this show on the road here. First off, I want to thank our official sponsor of the Shadid Elaser live broadcast. That is Good Beard Day. Good Beard Day. Now, science has proven, ladies, that the gentlemen out there with the beard, those with beards out there, are scientifically proven to be more long-term relationship worthy. So make sure you take care of the beards of the men in your life. And goodbeardday.com is your go-to location and destination to make sure that your man's beard is well maintained. That is goodbeardday.com, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your support of Shadidi Laser Live. As you can see, goodbeardday.com for your beard needs. There's also education. There's also various resources to help you with your overall beard situation. There's a lot of rough patches out there in beards. There's, scratchy beards. There's beards that get rough and coarse as they grow. So beard maintenance is a real thing. So make sure you check out goodbeardday.com, as you can see, and support the brand as they support me and my ideas. And tonight we're going to go in depth, ladies and gentlemen. Value-driven partnerships. Value-driven partnerships. Now, we've all been down this particular path before. This topic is near and dear to my heart because there's so many of us, whether in business, whether in life, whether in interpersonal relationships, people make the world go round, ladies and gentlemen. And it's important that you understand how to deliver value within your partnerships. You understand what relationships and communication really is. So if you have been in a one-sided friendship, business partnership, or some sort of arrangement, make sure you like or hit the hearts to love this post. Here's another scenario. If you've been the person on the other end of the partnership who has basically put their entire foot forward, you're investing all the sweat equity, you're doing all the work, and it just seems like it's completely one-sided, make sure you like or love this post. Send your hearts, send your likes this way, because we've all been there. And the purpose of this particular broadcast is to discuss some strategies and discuss what communication is, how to create deeper, honest interaction with people, and to avoid those who seem to be falling into one of the two categories. So in life, when you encounter people, there's only two categories that they fall into, ladies and gentlemen. That is the givers, people who give first, people who tend to give to the interaction first. And then there's takers, who are people who are not necessarily bad people. Maybe because of self preservation, which governs us all, they feel that a scarcity where they have to limit what they give to other people because in times past, or maybe in the example of their primary caregivers, they weren't necessarily shown the value of giving to others or the value of quality relationships. And that's a very real scenario when dealing with people, especially in business and especially in life. All we are as adults, essentially, are children who are replaying memories from childhood. That is all adults are, and those particular experiences continue to manifest themselves over and over. So, in being takers, not necessarily bad people. So, again, if you've been in a one sided partnership, relationship, or friendship, make sure you hit the like and love buttons. If you've bent over backwards for a partnership, make sure you hit the like or love button. So, leave within the comments examples of maybe when you've given too much to a partnership, or you feel that you've given it all, but that wasn't necessarily returned to you. It's very important to acknowledge this. Value driven partnerships, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go into rethinking communication. What is communication? Meaning communicating with other people within an interpersonal scenario. So I want you to keep in mind that your life, think about this. I want you to think about this very clearly. Just take a step back, take a deep breath in and out, and think about your life. Think about the people within your life. Think about the quality of, let's say, work that you're doing, or the friendships that you have, or your spouse, or your boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other. Think about the partnerships within your business. Think about all these things. And what I want you to realize is that your life is based on the words to yourself and to others. The quality of your life is based on the words that you tell yourself initially. So that can be in form of affirmation, and most importantly, that can be in terms of what you tell yourself when you fail or you fall short. So if I have a specific goal, and let's say things don't work out. Let's say I have a business meeting to be to at 10 p.m. tonight, and I'm running late. It's 10:30 and I'm stuck in traffic. And at that moment, the words that I tell myself, the words that I communicate to myself, well, I'm always a failure. I'm never going to get this right. This is never something that goes right for me. This implants in your subconscious, and it manifests in the world that you see through your lens or your eyes or your reality. So rethinking communication also applies to external, or your frequency that you give out. So if you carry these messages within and you're communicating with others, it affects how people treat you. I like to say that we apply the price tag that others, or the labels that others apply to us on a daily basis. We give the instructions of how people are to treat us through our actions and how we value ourselves. So the communication within, as well as the communication without or outside of us, are extremely important values that we need to be very conscious of as we deal with people. Now, I'm going to play a quick clip for you because this is a concept that has changed my life, and that is the impression of increase. Now, the impression of increase comes from chapter 14 from the great classic book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. Now, this book was written in the early 1900s, maybe around 1919, 1920, but it is powerful. His message is very powerful in terms of when communicating and delivering value driven partnerships, some of the things that you need to keep in mind. And I'm going to talk about how I utilize affirmative language to impart the impression or the law of increase on everyone that I meet. I also use this concept heavily as a rule or a law with social media. And I'll give you a few examples and you can ask questions and I will provide some feedback and to help you along your journey. Are you ready? So this is, once again, the impression of increase. This is chapter 14 from The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, excuse me.
You are giving it to all with whom you deal. You are a creative center from which increase is given off to all. Be sure of this and convey assurance of the fact to every man, woman, and child with whom you come in contact, no matter how small the transaction. Even if it be only the selling of a stick of candy to a little child, put it into the thought of increase and make sure that the customer is impressed with the thought. Convey the impression of advancement with everything you do, so that all people shall receive the impression that you are an advancing man, and that you advance all who deal with you, even to the people whom you meet in a social way, without any thought of business, and to whom you do not try to sell anything. Give the thought of increase. You can convey this impression by holding the unshakable faith that you, yourself, are in the way of increase, and by letting this faith inspire, fill, and permeate every action. Do everything that you do in a firm conviction that you are an advancing personality and that you are giving advancement to everybody. Feel that.
Okay. Now, once again, just to recap the clip, thank you, Gary, for checking in. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much. Make sure you check out Connection Radio with Gary. I had a great interview with Gary about the gift of entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurship is the leading vehicle in today's times to build our communities, to empower those who are disenfranchised, and basically teach a man or woman to fish so that they can be self-sufficient and be a contributor to communities and society as a whole. Connection Radio with Gary. Thank you for tuning in. So what we just took a listen to is chapter 14 of The Science of Getting Rich. And what many people assume this particular book or passage is about is more or less about, let's say, law of attraction or whatever the case may be. But what Wallace Wattles was discussing is how your mindset should be whenever you approach anyone, no matter if it's the cleaning lady or the cleaning guy at a hotel, whether it's a waiter or a waitress, whether it's the doorman, whether you're in Las Vegas and someone's just vacuuming the floor. Every person that you come into contact with, you have to give the impression of increase. This is such a powerful concept because there's a saying that you can judge a man or a woman based on how they treat people who cannot do anything for them. So if a person cannot basically advance their career, advance their life, advance their overall scenario, then you see they treat them with disrespect, or they treat them as if they're less than. So what this particular passage is sharing, and this is my secret sauce, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you come into contact with me, I am going to make sure I acknowledge the God within you, no matter what your religious denomination may be, the creator within you. And I'm also going to actively listen to find the genius that lies within you. Can we all agree that each one of us, I have the family checking in. Thank you. Thank you, Nene, for checking in. Thank you. But can we all agree that we all have gifts and talents that are either on the forefront for those of us who may be active public speakers or just living so vicariously through our passion that it's just obvious this person loves what they do. But on the flip side of that spectrum, there's also people who basically have the gift buried dormant within them, but in certain aspects, that particular gift comes out, whether in a moment of anger or a moment of passion, a moment of discussion. You say, wow, this person has this gift, but if they use that particular talent, they can take it to the moon. So that's very important. So, what I want you guys to focus on, thank you, Ms. Ivory Banks, for checking in on the broadcast and for the positive comments. I will preach, we are just getting started. So, what I want you guys to focus on in terms of action items, because this is not a monologue, this is not the Johnny Carson show, you know, the beginning of the Johnny Carson show where he's telling jokes. This is a dialogue. This is action items. So what I want you to keep in mind is when you're interacting with people as you head into the week, no matter what you may be doing for a living, you're going to encounter people in some way, shape, or form. If you work from home, you're going to encounter clients through email, through Messenger, through chat, through, let's say, desktop sharing software such as Zoom or Skype. And I want you to practice active listening first. Active listening first. And I want you to also listen for people's gifts, people's talents, and accentuate that. And that's what Wallace Waddles was speaking on or referring to in that particular chapter, which is chapter 14 of The Science of Getting Rich. That is the MP3 version, and it's pretty informative and awesome. So, in every Erica, thank you for checking in. My Atlanta cousin, actual family on the broadcast. It's a family affair, ladies and gentlemen. So let's look into, so we have the impression of increase. We discussed value-driven partnerships. We thought about rethinking communication. Now, in terms of rethinking communication as a whole, there's a moment in my life that long ago when I lived overseas, I was actually it was a lady that I dated years ago. Years ago, I was 21 years old when I lived overseas in Japan, and what I learned from her interactions with her was that when when I would discuss what I was doing or what I was working on or what was going on with me, she became so interesting to me because she wasn't always saying me first, me first, me first. She would use the interactions or the conversations that we had as a sounding board to basically add on or add value to the discussion. So in her active listening skills, and we were both in our 20s, so I don't know where she learned this stuff at. I need to go ask her this. But in listening, she would often look for the aspects not to cut in, because in many conversations, we look for people don't actually listen. They wait for their turn to cut in. They wait for their opportunity to jump in and speak. as opposed to listening for moments to keep the conversation going or adding value to the interaction. So, what she would do is if we're discussing my day, for example, and I mention a resource that, uh, good question. Ivory asks, did the quality of active listening that this young lady, her name's Ashoda, she's actually on Facebook somewhere, good friend, stick out to you in your 20s, or was that in retrospect? Now, Ivory, what stuck out to me was that because she took the time to add value to the conversation, it gave me the impression that she was very interesting, or that conversation with her was quote unquote magnetic. So any discussions that we had, even if it's just talking about the day or talking about mundane topics such as the weather, it was a much more enriching conversation. It was a much more valuable conversation because there was always different resources or different stories or different examples that augmented what we were discussing. So in retrospect, what I noticed is that years later, when I started to study human action interaction a lot more, and public speaking a lot more, and value driven partnerships a lot more, I noticed that she was one of the original examples of, wow, that is why she was so interesting, because she gave to the conversation. She did not look to inject her viewpoint only to the interaction. So you'll see, as an example, with people, they'll discuss that you'll discuss your accomplishment, and then they'll interject and say, well, I did that too, or I did this a certain way, as opposed to getting your perspective on the accomplishment and maybe adding additional resources to the conversation to enrich the overall discussion. And this does not mean, just to clarify, only discussing or being all about the other person. Is picking and choosing your spots. One thing I've learned about people is that they will like you a lot more. You'll be a lot more interesting if you just take the time to be more into them and be deeper into the discussion based on their experiences. And that's just human nature. If you are me, in discussing yourself and leading with yourself and your stories and your example, the other person doesn't have the opportunity to share what makes them unique. And you miss out on a valuable opportunity to connect on a deeper level. Does that make sense? Excellent question, Ivory Banks. Excellent question. But yes, in my 20s, it was the feeling of a deeper connection. And I might need to interview her because she's still around, and very, very insightful and interesting ladies. So, but as I grew older and started to reverse engineer some of the examples and the awesome people that have come into my life, I started to realize that these were the qualities that, uh, the recipe for deeper human interaction, if that makes sense. Lots of great questions. Thank you very much for being engaged and adding your perspective to this discussion. So, the next aspect that I want to discuss is how to answer the question, what do you do? Now, in terms of what do you do, I'm going to share with you a technique that will instantly clarify your position and connect you to either a single person or an audience. And I'll share with you how I came to this uh, revelation in my life. So, when it comes to what do you do, there's certain aspects of the human interaction that you have to keep in mind. Number one, human beings need to categorize people, places, and things not because they want to. It is for self-preservation or for their own survival. That is how we are built as people. You see, ladies and gentlemen, our brain and our subconscious mind protects us. It's the job of our thoughts and our subconscious mind. They work in unison with our body to send us signals to protect us and keep us alive. So when we meet a person, in many cases we're driven by unconscious reactions and feelings that are primal. These are not conscious feelings, but these are things that we feel on a primal or instinctual level that govern a lot of the human interaction that we deal with. So if a person has a good vibe or a good interaction or a good touch point with us, we tend to connect and or share their message or the feeling that they gave to us or imparted on us with our friends and family. So that is why social proof is an underlying factor or ingredient to just about every social media network. Websites and services such as Yelp.com are driven by social proof and interaction, with the thought being that if someone you know, like, and trust verifies or vets or approves or co-signs a service, a product, or an idea, you are more likely to also subscribe to that idea as well. And if you look on, let's say, Amazon.com and specific reviews, the filtering mechanism for Amazon.com is built entirely upon social proof. So once again, we as human beings tend to categorize people, places, and things for our own survival. Our brain, featuring our subconscious mind, sends signals to our body, which helps protect us based on perception and primal signals to keep us alive and preserved. So, what does this mean in terms of what do you do? So, when it comes to what do you do, there was a big challenge that I've had throughout the years in my life. Just to give you some personal testimony here, for those of you who know me well or just have an idea, especially if you work with me, I'm into a lot of different things. I'm a person who has different passions and skills and talents, and I try to do them all, every one of them. So from a categorization standpoint, or trying to categorize what I do, often created a huge confusion point with so many different people, and it probably still does. So if you ask 10 different people who have known me for 20 years or longer, hey, what does Shadi do? You will get at least eight different answers. At least eight different answers. Well, I think he does something with SharePoint. I think he does entrepreneurship. Does he teach martial arts? He runs those marathons pretty fast. I think he's into health. So there's a bunch of different things. So in my struggle with trying to explain what I do, I realized that what I do is really not that important. People don't care about what you do. What they care about is your mission. So when someone asks you, what do you do? What you need to reframe within your mind is, what is my mission and how does it relate to the person I'm speaking with? So when someone asks me what I do today, I often short circuit the conversation. I'll say these following words: in order for you to understand what I do, it is important for you to understand why I do it. And basically everything that I do requires all of my skill set in order to accomplish the why. And then I transition into the mission. And since I've adopted that approach, it has helped people connect to me in a way that is very powerful. It's easier to compartmentalize what I do. It is easier for business partners to refer me to other talented men and women within their network for, let's say, affiliate agreements, joint venture agreements, speaking engagements, mentorship engagements, you name it, because there is clarity. The mind of the person that I'm speaking with can now say, okay, I'm on board with what Shadi does. Now I can connect him to other people within my network. So that is important. When you talk about what you do, it's a hit or miss concept, mainly because the person you're speaking with may not resonate with what it is you actually do. So if you're in IT, for example, and the person you're speaking with is an art major or an art teacher, then chances are they're not going to get the technical connection between IT and art, or the touch points or the common denominators between those two. So what you have to do when you're active listening is make sure you get some information from the person so that you can be relatable in communicating your mission to that person. So if I'm discussing the 100 Classrooms campaign, which is my mission to adopt classrooms and solve digital literacy for uh, underfunded classrooms in Baltimore City and beyond, and the person I'm speaking with is an art major or an art teacher, then I will appeal to that art teacher's love for children. I will appeal to that art teacher's love for the arts and how the arts in itself within the school system is woefully underfunded. That is no secret. And when I reframe the conversation using specifics and using the background of the person that I'm speaking with, it instantly creates a rapport and a touch point that allows for he or she to connect on a deeper level, to relate to me right away. And it takes them into themselves and say, how can Shadid help me? And how can Shadid help my ecosystem, which is my network of people that I serve, that I support? And that's the secret sauce or the underpinning roots of successful partnerships, is understanding what are the touch points, understanding how your knowledge, skills, and abilities connect and serve and support the people that you're speaking with. In so many examples, in so many cases, many bright entrepreneurs and senior professionals, they are so tied into just getting the words out in terms of, yes, I am a senior coach for entrepreneurs who are overwhelmed with automation, that they don't take the time to ask themselves the question, how does what I do, how does my skill set, how is my idea to change the world relevant to the person that I'm speaking with? And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, in order for that to work, you have to step outside of yourself and actually care enough about the person that you're speaking with to invest that level of detail. And that goes back to the law of increase, chapter 14, Wallace Waddles, The Science of Getting Rich. No matter how big or how small on the totem pole of success the person that you're speaking with is, you have to take the time to understand their perspective and be relatable. You will never have successful partnerships to the level or degree that your potential or God given ability justifies unless you are able to dial up or dial down in terms of your overall skill set. I hope that makes sense. I hope that is something that resonates with you. So, again, people like to categorize. And when we're discussing the power of mission and purpose, so as I said, when someone asks you, what do? You reframe that to discuss your mission and relate your purpose because people are magnets and we as humans are attracted to the higher self in a person. To give you an example, I want you to just picture a crowded street, just one block on a street. Let's put a building to the right of it. Just picture this. And there's a bunch of people walking to and from. If one person or two people stand in the middle of that street and they simply just look up to the sky, after a matter of time, other people will surround that individual or that group of individuals and look up as well. Whereas if you stand in that same street and you look down for a long period of time, people will assume you're angry, you are confused, you are lost, you are befuddled. Lots of negative emotions will be associated with that. So, in terms of being a creator, in terms of being a transformational leader, the power of mission and purpose all starts with connecting to your higher and being able to, number one, communicate that from within and also extracting those qualities from the people that you come into contact with. So, the reason why, let's say, hairdressers or beauticians are so loved and revered because when their clients come to see them, they are in the beautification process. So every time you come into contact with them, they make people better. They make people feel better about themselves. Another key thing to keep in mind in terms of people and the power of mission and purpose are people instinctively need to connect to sources of power that are greater than themselves. The military, religion, the Boy Scouts, martial arts, these are all movements and collective sources of energy that people define themselves by being associated with. Toastmasters, you name it. Most organizations thrive on collective energy and people's instinctive need to connect to sources of power that are greater than the individual self. And another key point of reference is that people will instinctively follow potential and purpose. So these are all great points in terms of the power of purpose and mission. And within your business, within your brand, within your services, within your products, you always have to communicate and convey your mission, your power, and your purpose as it relates to your target audience. And when you start to include that storytelling within your overall business and your overall brand, that is when the magic starts to happen. And that is when you start to develop die-hard loyalty with your fan base. You start to develop raving customer bases where they become advocates for your products. In many cases, if you're an individual who's watching this broadcast or listening to this broadcast and you have problems or struggles gaining support for your products, or no one comes to your aid or your support when you're launching a new vehicle, when you're delivering a Facebook live session, when you're speaking on stage, or you have some sort of expo where you're displaying your talents, your knowledge, your skills or abilities, it is directly related to your ability to convey your purpose, your mission, and your power, and what makes you unique. That is the key area to always troubleshoot when it comes to your movement and who's connecting with you, who's resonating with you. When you speak about your mission, it needs to give you the chills. It needs to be something that convinces you. And the way that you convince yourself is through clarity. So taking the time and committing your ideas to paper. Number two is repetition. You need to, it can't be on you like a jacket. It must be internal. It must be in you. Can't be on you. It must be in you. Your mission must be an aspect of your life that you eat, sleep, and breathe. It is so important in terms of building a movement, in terms of interpersonal communication. And when you look at the great communicators throughout life, both positively and negatively, in terms of cult leaders such as Jim Jones or let's say David Koresh, for example, they have the ability to always connect to a higher ideal or a higher purpose or get everyone to collectively look up to the sky and look within the higher parts of themselves. And in many cases, that can be manipulative, that can be used for evil purposes, but it is an essential element in all forms of greatness, all forms. So I want to touch on a few points before I cover some Q&A. I want to give you 3 tips to deeper interactions in your interpersonal partnerships, in your business relationships, in your dealings with people. Because business, all business is a form of communication with people with specific rules. If you can't get along with people, chances are your business relationships will not be any better. A common misconception or a common crutch that I often see people fall into is the notion that quote unquote it's just business. And the people who do business on the highest level understand that people are the engine that make business around the world go round. So people are the engine to successful business. It's not just business, and it's always personal when you're dealing with people. Always personal. So 3 tips to create deeper interaction with people. Number 1, open-ended questions. Open-ended questions, to give you an opposite example, are you have your questions that lead to a yes or no answer. If you want to get more from people in your business dealings, you want to ask open-ended questions. How did this make you feel? What did you think about? What is your purpose? What were your decisions? What were the points that led to a specific decision? So open-ended questions are very important. Avoid yes or no questions whenever possible. Allow the person who you're dealing with to open up and share what makes them unique. That is a huge point to building engagement. Number 2, build connection through vulnerability. So, building connection through vulnerability is so powerful because it leads, especially if you're a subject matter expert, especially if you are a thought leader, especially if you're a transformational leader. Building connection through vulnerability is so important because it humanizes your skills so that it makes you more relatable. In every great story throughout fictional literature, there's always an arc and a transition and a turning point within every story. And human beings by nature are always looking for the redemption story within an individual. So if you're a person who sets yourself up through perception as the person who always has the answer, who never has any losses, who's flawless. Everything's always on point. You're never imperfect. You will not connect to your audience in a way that will resonate at the deepest level, at the soul level. You may be admired, you may be perceived as smart or an expert, but the people that we as human beings follow have imperfection. They've fallen. They've said, I don't know. They had to go get the answer. They were late. They had mustard on their suit 5 minutes before the biggest presentation of their life. When they had a Facebook Live session, the laptop crashed and couldn't log back on. Wi-Fi didn't work for them in their greatest presentation ever. They stutter, they stammer, they cannot figure out things at times. And those vulnerability points are what humanize you to your audience. So be aware of being the man or woman who can never take a loss, who can never show vulnerability, because people don't believe that. They may not see it, but we are always looking for the humanizing moment. So when you first meet a man or woman, and let's say in a dating scenario, and everything's perfect, they're on time, they're saying all the right things, and you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. If you've ever been in that situation, leave a comment, leave a like or heart. You've been in a situation where the person is perfect, nothing can go wrong. And so you're looking for, okay, what is the real deal about this man or woman? And what are they hiding from me? That is so important to understand. Human beings are always looking for connection points through vulnerability. And finally, increase connection with the quote unquote Me Too principle, but add a twist. And that twist is your perspective. The Me Too principle is congruence. It is relating to another person by saying, hey, you like this, I like that. I like that too. I think where people get this misconstrued is that in their willingness to want to connect with others, they often agree too much. They're too agreeable. And no one likes someone who they feel, well, let's say a different way. No one deeply connects with a person who they feel is being likable or liking them just to be agreeable. The greatest thought leaders are all opinionated. They took a stance, they put a line in the sand, and they live by that line in the sand. So, increasing your connection with your perspective. So, you can say, me too, I like this, but in my experience, I felt that this was the best way to go, and this is what I learned from that. How do you feel about this particular example, and how does that connect to what you have going on today? So, with that, it ties in an open-ended question: how do you feel about this? And builds the connection through vulnerability and the Me Too principle with a twist, which is your perspective. Never be afraid to share your viewpoint in a tactful and respectful way. There's a What people often misconstrue is the fact that sharing your opinion versus how you share your opinion. So many people feel that talking over someone or diminishing someone is necessary to share your truth. And the truth is, it's not. It absolutely is not. So you must be tactful. You must get your point across or share your experience, but at the same time, connect with the other person and humanize the overall experience. So let's take some questions here. So what I did earlier today, so I reached out to my Winner's Circle community and I asked them to share their questions with this broadcast. So our first question is from Mr. M. Jones. And M. Jones from Arlington, Virginia. he wrote to me, how do I overcome lack of experience when communicating? So I'll go into the background story. Um, Mr. Jones is a had a long career as a project manager, but it wasn't his passion, and coaching is. So Mr. Jones gets uncomfortable when sharing his business because the feeling that he lacks credibility. How can he overcome his lack of credibility in order to share where he currently is? So he has a long experience in project management, but he's a coach today. And the uncomfortability with sharing his message and feeling like he doesn't have enough skin in the game to effectively put himself forward as a coach. Mr. Jones, thank you for sharing your comment. And what I like to suggest to people who are in this similar boat, because we all have a transition point to go from where we were to the person that we evolve into today. Humanizing your experience will be your most powerful asset in connecting with your tribe and your audience. So I'll give you a clear example. Number one, utilize transferable skills from your dominant area of knowledge and proficiency and tell those stories within your scenario or new life as a coach. So you don't necessarily have to erase your past in order to move forward to your present and future. So through leveraging transferable skills, I want you to take inventory of the stories, of the moments, of the transformational results that you've achieved as a project manager, and utilize that as a way to tell case studies as a coach. So, project management, for example, involves working with people, coaching involves working with people. Project management, in projects, you have a start of a project, you have milestones in a project, you have results within a project. When you're coaching an individual, they have goals that they want to set for themselves. They have milestones that they need to reach in order to accomplish that goal. And they have results as they go through your transformational car wash that you can share as case studies. So the important thing is to use your relatable skills or your transferable skills in order to harvest or harness those particular stories and use those as you're communicating with your audience. Now, there's numerous platforms and channels to communicate with. You can utilize video, which is a proven and recommended strategy. You can also tell your stories via email. You can use telesummits. You can use webinars, you name it. So it's very important to make sure you're utilizing transferable skills. There's nothing wrong with being new in a field. It is a recommended strategy to humanize yourself and introduce vulnerability by saying, I'm following my passion. I have 20 years, for example, in this particular career of project management, and this is my new path. Here's what I'm going to deliver. Keywords: we're going to grow through this together, and join me along this journey and state the results in order to connect the audience, because no one likes to feel that they're being sold something that is inauthentic. So if you say, I am an expert, and they find out that you've only been a coach for a year, then it's not in alignment or congruence. And that's where the problems start. But if you are upfront with your vulnerability, then you can connect to people in a different way. And people will often champion your cause and lift you up and help you to succeed. Does that make sense? So I hope you gain value from that. M. Jones from Arlington, Maryland. Arlington, Virginia. What am I saying? So one question that I receive quite a bit is, how do I connect? How do I find the right words to say? How do I increase my credibility? How do I get from where I'm at to where I need to go in terms of building the right relationships, building my tribe, building my audience, overcoming some of the negative roadblocks that tend to come up? And with this opportunity, I'm offering you the chance to have access to the right words, have access to scenario based examples of how to connect your message to your particular audience. And that particular opportunity is the 1000 Entrepreneurs campaign. And that's my vehicle to ensure that entrepreneurship no longer has a roadblock. It no longer has an excuse. It no longer has the standard excuses and strategies. We've been through the New Year's hope and hustle, and everyone wants to do better. But what I'm starting to notice as we're heading into the second quarter is that so many people had the motivation, but they're running into roadblocks. They have the meeting with a new client, but they don't know what to say, or they're transitioning from their career in project management, for example, but they don't know the right words to establish themselves as a new coach, or they care about their clients, but they have such a deep seated insecurity or deep seated poor relationships with people who have taken from them so long over the years that they don't know how to give anymore. So, with the 1000 Entrepreneurs campaign, you get direct access to me, Shadidi Laser, and that will include monthly strategy sessions. So, I will sit down with you and I will get to the roots of your scenario, your problems, your milestones, your roadblocks, and I'll give you a detailed report of what you need to do to improve, to include resources. I have a team of professionals that also augment those discussions, and they love to help you win. I will give you the words to say in emails, conversation, and more. My team will also brainstorm to help augment those discussions in terms of the right words to say, the role playing that you may need to be comfortable with your particular scenario to get those right words out. I will provide you with unlimited email support. This means if you have a question, a scenario, I will help for you to get those answers out quickly right away so that if you have an interview on Friday with a new client or a contract, you will have the ability to do so. You will have direct support from me. You will also have access to quarterly mastermind sessions where I assemble you as a group and you get to share your problems, your troubles, and also resources to help shorten the learning curve. I will help to transform your shyness into your highness, meaning we will address what holds you back from building your best version of yourself in terms of your mission, your message, and transform that into your strength. So, whether you want to be a better public speaker, whether you need to have a face to face conversation and deliver your message in a way that people connect to you directly, I will help you accomplish that. And finally, I will publish your story once we define it into a book. So that means you'll be on leading platforms such as Amazon Kindle to help you build your credibility and get up and running in the game of life in terms of your business, your brand, your life as a whole. So, the 1000 Entrepreneurs campaign is my vehicle to eliminate roadblocks, and I'm giving you the opportunity to enroll into the program. It is a very minimal cost to get involved. So for the cost of a few cups of coffee at Starbucks, you have direct access to eliminate your roadblocks and be the best version of yourself. You can use the link right here in the screen, which is the 1000 campaign, and connect to a greater source of knowledge, skills, and abilities and resources. I have a team that is smarter than I in specific areas, and I'm not a believer in leaning on my own understanding. Coaches need coaches. I'm not a coach. I am an implementation specialist, and I avoid roadblocks at any and all costs. So, once again, click the link and make sure you are on the up and up, and make sure that you have the right words, the right conversation. You're conveying your mission and message correctly. Whether you're multi talented, I will help you to hone down your message in a way that it makes sense to everyone you speak with. So click the link. Once again, I'm Shadidi Laser. Thank you so much for tuning into this broadcast on how to deliver high value relationships within your business or your brand and completely communicate and convey your message. You've been a great audience. Thank you for your questions and your concerns and your feedback. Without me and without you, we don't have a community. Without you, I'm just a man talking to myself. That can be dangerous. You know, that people be locked away, throw away the key for that. But I'm just happy to have provided value through this particular broadcast. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your energy. And thank you so much for your continued encouragement of myself as well as the 100 Classrooms campaign. Make sure you connect to the 1,000 entrepreneurs, which is located on a link here. Proceeds are going to adopt classrooms to solve digital illiteracy. So, in addition to getting clarity on your roadblocks, you also can adopt classrooms and be connected to my campaign and my vehicle throughout the year to adopt 100 classrooms. Very transparent, very awesome. Shad Didi Laser, ladies and gentlemen, over and out. Thank you so very much for your time. Have a good evening.